All right, welcome in. Ready to dive in. Today, we're going to be checking out Spectrllax's new album, Parasite.
Yeah, this is exciting.
We've got a bunch of stuff to look at here, lyrics and some audio from 5 of the tracks, Haunted Heart, The Addict, The Strong One, The Company You Keep, and then Parasite. Pills don't help anymore.
A lot of material, yeah.
It is. It is. I'm excited to really try to get a feel for what this album's all about, before it actually drops.
Right. Get a sneak peek.
Yeah. 7th studio album. Should be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that really jumps out to me, just kind of like, first glance, is this recurring presence, this haunting. It pops up in several of the songs, most notably in Haunted Heart, but it seems like there's a mystery to it. Like we don't really know what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a great point. It's not really clear cut. Haunted comes up a lot, and it could be talking about a person, but also guilt, regret, any kind of trauma lingering. I'm really interested to see how they play with that, throughout the whole album.
Yeah, for sure. There's also this EVP thing that comes up a few times too. What do you think that's all about?
Well, EVP can, obviously stand for a bunch of things, but the way they're using it here with these lyrics, I think it's pretty safe to say that it's, electronic voice phenomena.
Okay. What is that?
Basically the idea that, you can record the voices of spirits.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, through recordings. It's it's a paranormal thing, but they seem to be using it as like a metaphor. It's more about this lingering presence, like somebody that's gone.
Okay.
And that really goes with the whole, haunted heart idea, those lingering feelings.
Yeah. So it's not just a ghost, but almost like the ghost of memories, emotions, maybe even, regret, guilt.
Exactly. And it just makes it more, complicated, more interesting. This EVP could be someone they've lost, but also maybe like a symbol for their own past mistakes they've made or trauma they can't get away from.
Wow. Yeah, that's deep. And it really, I think, sets the stage for a lot of the other things that we see in these lyrics, too, like the addiction and mental health stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That seems to be a big part of this album, too.
Yeah. It's definitely prominent, especially in The Addict and Parasite. Pills don't help anymore. And I think it's all connected, right? That feeling of being haunted by something, addiction, mental illness. It's like they're both these things that you can't escape.
Yeah, like they stick with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they're hauntings, too, in a way.
Totally. And the way, Spectrllax kind of brings all of that together, the internal and external, it's like a really, sophisticated understanding of what it means to be human. They're not afraid of the dark stuff, and that's what I think is going to make this album so good.
For sure. And there's this theme of love and loss, too, throughout a lot of the tracks, especially Haunted Heart and The Strong One.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always romantic love, either. It's more just, it seems like it's about love in general, love that sticks with you even after it's gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that kind of connects back to the, that haunted by the past thing. Sometimes the people we love, even if they're not around anymore, it almost feels like they're still there.
Yeah. And those feelings can be so complicated too. It's not always just like, oh, I miss you. There's anger, there's regret, maybe guilt, all mixed up with the love.
Definitely. And I think, Spectrllax is going to explore all of that. It's not going to be some, fairy tale romance. It's going to be real. It's going to be raw. Probably pretty sad too.
And that's kind of what I love about music like this. The real stuff, the stuff that makes you feel it deep down.
Yeah.
And from what we've heard so far, Spectrllax is giving us that.
Yeah, totally agree. They're digging deep, and that's going to connect with a lot of people. It's like they're saying, "Hey, you're not alone in this."
So we've got this whole idea of being haunted, whether it's by a person, a feeling, or maybe even an addiction, and it's all tied in with love, loss, this struggle for peace.
Right.
But I think before we get too caught up in the bigger picture, we should focus in on a few of these songs, starting with Haunted Heart. What stands out to you about this one?
Well, it really feels like the intro to everything. You know, it sets it all up.
Yeah, I think so too. Like we're being introduced to the ghost that's going to be with us the whole time.
Right, exactly.
And I'm really curious about the EVP thing. How does that play out in the rest of the album?
Yeah. It's like a puzzle, isn't it?
It is.
They're giving us these little pieces, these glimpses into what's going on, in their head, in their heart. And and it's up to us to kind of put it all together. But to do that, we gotta look closely at each piece.
Yeah. And like those lines, where they're talking about hearing the voice and feeling the presence, it just sets a mood,
Yeah.
So let's dive into Haunted Heart. What secrets can we find?
Sounds good. What really gets you, right off the bat in those first lines?
It's how they talk about the EVP, like it's this constant companion, but also like something that they're afraid of too. It's almost like they're both like drawn to it and they want to run away from it all at the same time.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It speaks to how complicated grief is and how it just hangs around even when you're trying to move on. And it makes me wonder, are they trying to connect with this EVP, or are they trying to get away from it?
Ooh. That is a really good question. And maybe that's something that we got to keep in mind, as we go through these other songs too.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's not so simple. Maybe it's both.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that's what's so great about this album. It's not, giving us easy answers. It's making us think, making us, really dig into those emotions.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like they're dancing with their past, right?
Yeah.
And it reminds me of that part in The Addict where they're talking about fighting that specific craving. Oh. Yeah, I see what you're getting at. There's definitely a connection there. They both deal with feeling trapped.
Yeah.
Whether it's by the EVP or the addiction, it's like they're trying to break free, but they keep getting pulled back in.
Exactly. And it's really cool how Spectrllax uses words to make you feel that. The way they describe the craving in The Addict, it's like they're talking about an actual monster,
Yeah.
Like something that's attached to them and won't let go.
Yeah, that's a good point. The language is really, really intense, like almost violent sometimes. It's not just, I'm struggling, it's a fight. Like they're battling for control. And I think that really shows how powerful addiction can be, how it can, completely take over.
Yeah. And the music too, right? Like the beat, the guitars, it all builds this feeling of like anxiety.
Yeah.
Like the music itself is addicted. It's restless. It wants something,
I hadn't thought of it like that, but you're right. It's like they're both working together, the words and the music, and it's creating this feeling of like desperation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that desperation, that feeling of being trapped, it comes up again in Parasite too,
Bruh.
Pills don't help anymore, but in that song, it's like the parasite, it's not a person, it's not a drug, it's something like inside them, something in their mind.
Yeah. It's like the EVP is in their head now.
Right, and it's just messing everything up.
Right.
And the pills, it's like they're just a temporary thing. They help numb the pain.
Yeah.
But they don't actually fix anything.
Right. And the pills themselves, they're almost like another addiction.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they're relying on something to deal with all that stuff that's going on inside.
Right.
And it's the same, as the craving in The Addict. It's like it helps for a little bit, but it doesn't really solve the problem.
So we've got these three songs, and they're all dealing with different kinds of parasites.
Yeah.
Different ways of being haunted, right? And it seems like in every case they're looking for something more, something that will actually, set them free. But what is that?
That's the question, right? And I think maybe the other two songs, the strong one and The Company You Keep, maybe those give us a different way to think about it.
Okay, I'm interested to hear what you think. How do they fit into everything?
Well, the strong one, it's interesting because they're not the ones struggling this time, right? It's someone they love that's going through it. And what's really powerful is they decide to step back, to let go, even though it hurts.
Yeah, that's a big decision, especially with everything else going on in the album, And it seems like maybe that's the strongest thing you can do sometimes. Walk away from something that's hurting you, even if you love it.
Exactly. It's about taking care of yourself, realizing that you can't save someone if they don't want to be saved.
Right.
And it's about knowing your limits, protecting yourself, but still, loving them, supporting them from afar. And
The Company You Keep kind of takes that even further, doesn't it? It's realizing that the people around you, they matter. They can either lift you up or they can drag you down.
Yeah. And sometimes the people you love the most, they they can be the worst for you, and
Yeah.
and you got to choose carefully. You gotta be around people that want to see you do well.
Right. And that's so important when it comes to addiction, mental health,
Oh yeah.
It can be so lonely, and you need people to get it.
For sure. And those people, they're not always easy to find.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to let go of relationships that aren't good for you anymore. And it's hard, but the company you keep, it's saying that it's worth it. The right people, they can make a huge difference.
So we've got this idea of breaking free from those bad influences, setting boundaries, choosing your own way. But how does that connect back to the whole, being haunted thing?
Well, I think it's about realizing that sometimes those ghosts, the ones we're running from, they're ones we made ourselves.
Oh, wow.
Like, the things we do over and over again, the relationships, the choices we make, they lead us to this point.
Yeah.
To get away from those ghosts, you gotta change. You gotta let go of the past and try something new.
That's deep.
Yeah.
It's like Spectrllax is saying that to deal with addiction, mental illness, any kind of haunting, you gotta take control of your own life. Make good choices, choices that help you heal, help you be whole.
And that's something a lot of people need to hear.
Mhm.
We all have our own ghosts to fight, our own problems to solve, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is just let go of the stuff that's holding you back and start a new chapter.
Yeah, that's true. Before we go too far, though, I want to go back to the strong one for a sec, because I think there's something else there that we haven't really talked about yet.
Okay, what do you think?
It's the title, The Strong One.
Mm-hmm.
Because at first it seems like they're the strong one, right?
Yeah.
The one walking away. But what if the person they're leaving is actually the strong one?
Oh, okay, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of it like that. What do you mean?
Well, the person who's going through the addiction or the mental health stuff, they're the ones facing it head on, right?
Yeah.
They're the ones
Yeah.
fighting for their life, even if it's hard, even if it's messy.
Uh-huh.
And that takes so much strength.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's a different kind of strength, right?
Right.
It's not the strength to walk away, it's the strength to stay, to keep fighting even when you feel like you're losing. And people don't always see that,
No, they don't.
Yeah.
And I think Spectrllax is showing us that in this song. They're not putting down the person who's struggling,
Yeah.
They're seeing their fight, and they're seeing how much courage it takes to keep going.
Yeah. That's a really beautiful way to look at it, and it just makes the song even more meaningful. It's not just about one person being strong and one person being weak. It's about all the different ways we can be strong, when things are hard.
Yeah, yeah. And that goes back to what the whole album's about, right? This idea of fighting for yourself,
Mhm.
whether it's, getting away from addiction, dealing with mental health, or even just leaving a bad relationship. It's about finding that strength to do what's right for you, even if it's hard, even if it means letting go of something you thought you needed.
Mm-hmm. And seeing the strength in other people too, even when they're struggling.
So we talked about addiction, mental health, love, loss, this whole idea of being haunted. But there's one song we haven't really dug into yet, The Company You Keep.
Yeah, the one that reminds us we're not alone, but also, gotta watch out for those bad influences.
And I think it's the perfect one to kind of move into talking about how all these songs, they tell a story, like how they all connect.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's see how they put it all together. It feels like The Company You Keep is kind of like a turning point for the whole album.
Yeah, I think so too. Like we've been through all this dark stuff, and now there's like a little bit of hope, and it comes from realizing like, hey, you can choose your own path. You can be around good people. You can get away from the bad stuff.
Right, like they're finally realizing they have a say in things. They can make their own life, and that's huge, especially for anyone who's dealing with addiction, mental health. It can make you feel so helpless, like you have no control. But this song, it's like a reminder: you have choices. You can fight for yourself.
Yeah, and it's not all about just what you do either, right? It's about the whole world around you, like the stuff you mentioned earlier, the desires of liars, the spires of fires, like in Parasite. It's like all that stuff in society that kind of pushes you towards addiction, mental illness.
Oh, for sure. And The Company You Keep, it's saying, hey, choose who you hang out with carefully, not just your friends, but the whole system, the institutions you're part of. Those can be just as bad as a toxic friend.
It's like they're saying, do something about it.
Hmm.
Look at your own life, the choices you make, but also look at the bigger picture. What are you part of that's making this stuff worse?
Right. Yeah, it's a challenge to, to pay attention, to be careful about who you're with, not just, one-on-one, but like in the whole world, because it all affects you.
Okay, so as we're wrapping up here, I want to go back to that big question we had earlier.
Hmm.
What is the parasite?
Yeah.
What's Spectrllax trying to get away from?
Good question. It's complicated, right? I think there's a few answers. For them personally, it could be the addiction, the mental health stuff, the grief, the ghosts from their past. But bigger than that, it's all the things in society that feed on your fear, your insecurities, the pressure to fit in, all the information coming at you all the time, the systems that make people suffer.
And the album is saying, like, to break free from that, you got to do a few things. You got to take responsibility for yourself, make good choices, but you also got to work to change the whole system, the things that hurt people.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And that's something that a lot of people are going to feel, We're all fighting something, whether it's inside us or out there in the world. And this album, it gives you hope. It reminds you you're not alone and you can make a difference.
Well, that's good. That's a good place to end things, I think. But keep the conversation going. Listen to the full album when it comes out. Let us know what you think. We want to hear your ideas, what you got out of it.
And as you listen, think about, what are your parasites? What's holding you back? And how can you break free?
Thanks for hanging out with us for this deep dive into Parasite. We'll catch you next time. Keep diving deep and keep the music playing.